To order the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission agenda for May 13th, 2024. And we'll start with a roll call, and let's just go from my left on the dais.
Lansing Duncan, 3rd District.
Keith Kaufman Gray, 1st District. There.
Ronald Nye at large.
Sheila Snow, 1st District.
Randy Melcombe, 5th District.
Okay, we have a quorum. Okay, do we have, today we do have some public comment, that any item that is not on today's agenda. And we'll start with Amber Long.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm here in 2 capacities today, but for the first one, I'm going to be talking to you about All Saints by the Sea Episcopal Church in Montecito. We have submitted a landmark application for the property, and we had hoped we'd hear it today, but it'll be part of next month's meeting. The church was first built in 1900 and was the first permanent home of the Episcopal Church in Montecito. And in 2015, it was found eligible for the California Register under Criterion C for the work of Arthur Burnett Benton. And he did a lot of ecclesiastical work where he combined both craftsman architecture with Gothic elements, which is what makes this an eligible building. And Post Hazeltine also found it eligible under Criterion, Landmark Criterion 2, 3, and 4. And the church is just very excited about this. So I'm just coming here today to let you know that it's coming. They've also done some really great rehabilitation work that's consistent with the standards. It's been seismic rehabilitation where they've taken down their stone tower block by block, numbered it, added the seismic structural things inside of it, put it back. And so it's a really wonderful example of this type of architecture. So on their behalf, I'm here to let you know they're really excited about it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Amber was hired by the church to write up the application for landmark. So she's going to shepherd that project to the extent possible. And we look forward to seeing it come before us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I believe you have one more item.
Oh yeah, and then we also have also for All Saints Episcopal, but this will be Amber will be speaking on behalf of All Saints Episcopal Church.
And then the second one will be regarding the housing laws that were passed recently.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see right here. I'm sorry. The housing rules impact on historic preservation. Thank you.
I just wanted to bring this to the attention as it's coming to my attention in my work and from my clients, the new housing bills that were passed, including SB 9 and 10, SB 330, and their impacts or potential impacts on how historic resources are managed. There's a lot of good information out there analyzing this, and I have sent the document that I'm particularly referring to right now to Jonathan. But it's important to note that some of these new housing bills are providing reduced environmental review, and in some cases that's going to impact the level of historic protections, particularly I believe it's SB 10, which addresses zoning, denser zoning residential sites, and there's less protections in terms of if a property is not already listed on the California Register, whereas the other bills include the additional language of listed on or eligible for or eligible at a local level. So some of the things that they are asking, various groups are asking communities to do is to update their surveys, do additional surveys, look at their demolition language, and also look at their ordinances. So I'm just bringing that to the table as it's new to me. I'd like to make that known so that there can be further conversation.
Thank you very much. Okay, any more public comments, Jonathan?
We do have one hand raised in the chat.
Okay.
Mr. Steve Ford, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
All right, thank you. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Thanks. Steve Fort with Suzanne Ellis Planning and Permitting. Speaking with regard to 2929 East Valley Road, we've been notified that the landmark designation forms have been prepared for 2929 East Valley, and a recommendation for designation. We've been told that you guys are going to consider it as an agenda item on June 10th, the hearing next month. I just want to reiterate briefly, as has been indicated several times, please understand the property owners continue to not be interested in a landmark designation. It is a private residence. There's no public access. The structure is not visible to the public from any public viewpoint. And it would be appreciated if the designation were not pursued by HLAC. And that's all I have. Thanks for your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ford. Thank you. Any other, Jonathan?
That was the last public comment turn.
Okay, well, let's move on to the minutes.
Mr. Chair, yeah. A letter was submitted by Fermina Murray.
Oh, yes, we did have
Yeah, and
some
that,
public comment letters submitted.
it went to me, but it also I think Jonathan said he had received it also.
And there should be copies on the dais in front of you.
So how does this work? Should I read it? Or?
I'm going to put it on the screen.
Yeah, go ahead and put it on the screen and you want to go ahead and read it?
Oh, sure. Is this mic on? I guess so. All right. This is from Fermina Murray, and a historian, local historian, and it is commenting on the demolition of the Middle Road Moody Cottage situation, and since it was removed from the agenda at the last minute, she had sent this in. I am a registered local consultant historian who has worked in the field of historic preservation for over 25 years. I have appeared before you and wrote a letter to the Board of Supervisors about this unpermitted demolition of one of the few landmark buildings in Montecito. It is unbelievable that the county staff memo is recommending that the property owner who knowingly demolished the Moody Sisters cottage without permits in July 2023 will consider making the donation to a nonprofit organization and volunteer to become a docent at Velasguardo, unquote, as redress for the loss of Landmark 50. It makes a mockery of the community of Montecito and of preservation principles of the county of Santa Barbara. The destroyer of a landmark resource must not be the one who decides what the penalty should be. HLAC and Board of Supervisors are responsible for implementing penalties. The illegal destruction of the landmark Moody Sister Cottage in Montecito is a gross violation of California Environmental Quality Act and carries substantial adverse impacts, Class 1. In the city of Santa Barbara, such a violation at a minimum would require an environmental impact report to be done and paid for by the property owner. The county landmark number 50 is lost forever. I join other concerned citizens to urge HLAC to take a stand today that this violation should not be resolved through a tax deductible donation. a hefty fine that is of equal value to the landmark Moody Sisters Cottage that was deliberately demolished without permits must be imposed. HLAC's decisive action to declare a hefty fine for unpermitted demolition of this landmark would set a precedent to the public that our county leaders value highly the county's historic preservation. Moreover, it would help prevent wanton destruction of historic resources like the loss of this cottage. Thank you, Fermina Murray.
Okay, thank you so
Okay.
much.
And we did have one other letter from the Santa Barbara Conservancy as well. Did you want to, we put it on the screen as well for Moody Cottage? From the Santa Barbara Conservancy?
I'm getting a lot of echoes and not a lot of sound. My ears are getting older, but can you tweak the system?
Yeah, I can give it.
Sorry.
Is this sent in by email or? This is a reminder to all commissioners that their inbox just before, as things get added that we do not see. Is anyone eyes good enough? They would like to read this into the record?
You can go ahead.
Yeah, or I can't.
Go ahead. Commissioner Snow. Commissioner So, go
It's
right ahead.
really small. Okay.
You can increase it.
Oh, you can increase the size? Okay, but I'm doing okay. Now, this
Oh, that's
is
better.
from, oh, yeah. It's from the Santa Barbara Conservancy. And it says, Dear Commissioners, as president of the Santa Barbara Conservancy, as well as the vice chair of the City of Santa Barbara Historic Landmarks Commission, I urge you to deliver the strongest possible statement to the Board of Supervisors and to property owners that such an egregious violation of an historic landmark will not be tolerated and comes at a steep cost. I do not have benefit of firsthand knowledge of the details of this case, but it would seem to me that the property owner knew that they were stewards of a landmark property, as it is the sort of information that would be disclosed in a real estate transaction. Secondly, it would be naive to think that no permit is needed to demolish a building regarding of its status. And finally, it's hard to believe that one could find a contractor to demolish a building without permit, lest they jeopardize their license. I personally have been involved in a renovation of a Moody Sisters cottage, so I'm familiar with the character-giving features, including the beauty of the old-growth redwood that was readily available in the day. Rebuilding per original plans can't just bring this back. So I'm at a loss as to what to suggest, but I beg you to not set a precedent that such a travesty can easily be mitigated with a modest fine. This is a classic case of, quote, better to ask forgiveness than to ask permission, quote. Please don't render valid the utility of this approach. Can't get up any further. Finally, ask yourselves, what is the loss of this piece of Montecito's history? It's theft, plain and simple. The perpetrator is not the one to be suggesting appropriate offset. You are. Respectively, Steve Howard.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Snow. Okay. That was the last public comment? Okay, thank you very much. And thank everyone for the time to do public comments, because I think we don't always get them and it's nice to have them. Okay, let's move on to the minutes of April 8th, 2024. Just want to go over that. What you're seeing is the revised minutes that Commissioner Duncan had done his revised comments to Jonathan Martin so that we have what you see before you today. And Lansing, if you have any more, you would like to go ahead.
A few minor things, Mr. Chair. One, in the commissioner's absent, it lists Karen Steinwex now, but we don't need that online in parentheses because it's my understanding that the hybrid aspect of this meeting allows members of the public and applicants to use online access, but not ourselves. And so it's my understanding that if she was watching online, she was a member of the audience in that case. And so we should just strike online from that.
Where's that?
Under commissioners absent. And then we just need a couple of periods at the end of the sentence that says roll call. After our new commissioner, we need a period. And at the end of the minutes, after as amended, we need a period. And other than that, I think we're pretty good.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Duncan. Any other comments on the minutes? Commissioner Nye?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Down at the bottom where it's number 7, project discussion. I think that sentence needs to be fleshed out a little. Discussed issues relating to accessing the county of Santa Barbara. Would that be box folder? I mean, it's kind of vague. Capital BOX folder containing, that should be history reports and not historic reports. Submitted to, and that should be submitted by the planning development. So I'll just ask, so how does this work, Jonathan? Are you making these changes in real time so that your copy is the official approved copy? Cool, thank you.
Commissioner Duncan?
Yes, it's true that the planning and development put those things in the box file, but the historians submitted those reports to planning and development. Right?
Okay, I agree with that. Would you like that included? I mean, it is kind of, it's out there. It doesn't, the sentence itself is sort of
What about submitted by planners from planning and development?
any of that, yeah.
Okay, we have a couple, let's see, Commissioner Solano.
Thanks.
Yes, I believe the item that
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Good eye.
Thank you. And I have Commissioner Malcolm.
Yeah, I wanted to address Lansing's suggestion to strike the online parenthesis from Karen's in the absent column. I think it'd be minorly good to discuss because although she was absent physically, she was still present at the meeting to hear everything that was going on. In that she could not officially vote on anything for that day, but she, for the future, knowing that if a subject comes up on a future agenda, she still has the knowledge of what was talked about at this meeting. So I think it'd be good to keep that she was online just to, just as a minor official record that she was present,
Well, I guess the
or any of us for that matter
this
in the
would maybe
future.
an and question, because we've always been told that commissioners to be involved in the meeting have to be present. They cannot be present online.
Oh, I'm not disputing that. It's just for the future, talking about the subject if it comes up again on this past agenda. Because I've been absent before, but as long as I review the tapes and comments, I can comment on the future if that particular subject. So it's just kind of nice to see, okay,
Well, maybe,
easier to affirm that she was here or any of us in the future.
we word it like online as,
Because it does say that she
you know,
was
not as a
absent.
commissioner, but as a,
She's absent. She's
Yeah.
absent, but
Yeah.
I kind of like the fact that she's present online,
Right,
but. Yes, I
and that's
agree
pretty clear.
That she was listening, so you.
yeah?
Take it out.
Okay,
Okay, county council has spoken.
fair enough.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, well, I like this discussion here. Everyone's involved in the minutes. This is very good. Any other comments on the minutes?
If there are none, Mr. Chair, I'd move that we adopt the minutes of April 8th, 2024 as amended.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let's see, abstain, okay, and oppose. So we have one abstention and the rest are all ayes. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And we'll move on to staff updates. This is the planning development. Staff will provide a brief oral announcement on reports on items of general interest to the commission and members of the public, such as ordinance amendments, process or recently approved that may impact agenda items, updates or procedures. Any staff updates today?
Nothing from staff.
Well, let's move on to chair project discussion. This is a time where I will go over a few things that have happened since the last meeting, just to keep you update. Again, since they're not agendized, we really cannot discuss them, but I'll just go over things that I have done as chair, and of course, then we'll go through project discussions. So the first one on April 16th, and actually this is the time, Jonathan, you can put those pictures up. There was a ribbon cutting ceremony for the Alamo Pintado pedestrian bridge in Los Olivos. And I was there, and also Commissioner Steinwalks was there also present. And it was a very nice ribbon cutting. It was one of those beautiful spring days, you know, no fog. It was mid-70s, beautiful weather. And the bridge is amazing. And I took pictures because I wanted everyone to see what this bridge looks like, because they spent over $4 million for a pedestrian bridge. This is Caltrans. And a lot of it was our input that we put in. When we go through the pictures, you will see a lot of the things that we discussed, putting dioramas and talking points about the original bridge on there. And of course, we talked about recycling the original rocks on the old bridge onto the new bridge, and that was done. So the first picture you see is Joan Hartman, Supervisor Hartman, that's her district, and she was there, and she did some very nice words. So go ahead and just do the next one. Oh, this one's sideways. This is the head of the director of Caltrans District 5, I believe is Scott Eads, and he spoke about the bridge, and he was one that mentioned how much the bridge actually cost. So go ahead and move on. And these are some of the, they're not in order, these pictures are not in order, but these are the plaques that were done. And Lindsay Kozab, the principal architectural historian, she mentioned to me that was very busy working and creating these plaques. So Lindsay Kozab is the principal architect historian now for District 5. She's the one we're now working with for issues in our area. And you know, just go on through, but I mean, they did different things like rides, different ways of transportation. This is how they look on the bridge. As you can see, the rocks that are put on there, the pedestrian bridge. And there's all these great descriptions about the history of the area. Okay, so this is what I'll need some help with. The person on the right is Lindsay. So you can put a face to a name that I've talked to before. The person on the left, Commissioner Nye, you said that is?
The person on the far left is Paula Carr, a retired historian who's made presentations
Yes.
to us before.
And the one in the middle, I forgot her name, but she was very instrumental in this bridge too. She's also a historian for Caltrans. And I'm sorry I don't have her. Thank you. Okay, next picture. And this is the manager of Maddie's Tavern, and he spoke about how they're very excited to have this next to their property. And he did a nice talk, little speech about it. And how many in fact, school kids classes have already been going to the bridge to look at the history of the area. So it's very well used. Next picture. Okay, and then this is just a picture of the railing. I have to admit, I didn't realize how deep it was right there. I didn't realize but it's quite deep. The bridge goes over a pretty deep area of Alamo Pintado Creek. So it's nice, very nice setting there. And next picture should be just some more pictures of the dioramas. Oh, that's a close-up of the wall. As you can see, it has all the different rocks, river rocks that are from stream bed, and I think there's some further up Alamo Pintado Creek where they harvested these rocks originally, but they're from that area. And then here's a history of the rails that is on there. Talks about the history of the rail of the train through the area. And next one, spins, bicycles, and transportation. And then flows. This is an interesting one. Mr. Witash, you were, since your engineering background, they did a lot of the original bridge on here. So it says the type of, it's a Jack Arch Bridge, and they did a little talk about the Jack Arch Bridge, and then pictures of the original bridge on there. And is there another one, I think? And then this is the very beginning. This would have been the first one. As you go down the line would be about the Chumash history of the area. And I think that's it, right? Yeah, okay. So anyway, it was, like I said, it was just a really nice ceremony. Nice group of people there. I got to meet Lindsay. I'd never met her before, so that was nice. And like I say, Commissioner Steinwalk was there also. Okay, so that's that on,
Mr.
that was on
Chair?
April 16th.
Before you leave that, can I make one comment on this? I think this is really important in that we hated to see this original bridge demolished. And it was very good to have this documentation and the interpretive items for the public going forward. And then I was also very interested to read the written report that they provided us too. And I would just note one thing that was omitted from there in our bigger perspective, which is, of course, one of the things that made this so distinctive was the Franciscan assemblage rocks that are on it that are so unique. And the other thing was that we lost another bridge, which was also a Jack Arch bridge and sort of ahead of its time, or at least a very early example, and that was at Lansing's Crossing. So having lost that and this other one, it's really nice that we have at least this pedestrian bridge as an example to remind us of that history.
And like I said, I brought this because so many times we look at projects and we never know what happens after we look at them. And this, we actually see that, our input, you can see some of our input at the final completion of this bridge.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
just to chime in, Mr. Duncan stole the words out of my mouth, but this is a feather in our cap because several of us were very active in trying to save the original bridge, or to at least have it replaced with something that's of this character. And what irks me often is that Caltrans seems to be the poster child every time somebody wants to criticize something that's happening, but they often come through. And this is a perfect example of Caltrans doing the right thing by this old bridge and enhancing the quality of life for the community. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on chair report, I just want to go over, everyone in the last few weeks should have gotten some reports put into your box file from the planning development. There was two projects that two planners put in, and I wanted to make sure, I know it's a little difficult to get in there. Once you get in there, once you get a password and everything, then you can get in all the time and things are being added. They did, and I just wanted to let everyone know they did add two reports. You know, we really can't discuss this right now, but please let me know if you're having trouble. I'm thinking that we should maybe have like a Zoom call with planning development just to explain to us how to do it. I was able to do it with the help of somebody else because I was having a hard time. And I have it on my screensaver now. And when they emailed me and said something was put in, and I think we all got that email that said that something new was put in the box. I went in and sure enough, it was in there. So once you get it set up, things will be added and you don't have to, add things into it afterwards. So I just want you to be aware that there's two projects that are in there that they sent. They're historic reports. And if you haven't been in there yet, try to get in there. If you're having trouble, just let me know. And I'm not going to be a good person to teach you how to do it because I had someone else do it to me. But maybe we can get a tutorial to help us, the rest of us, so we can get in there because, the whole idea is if one of us feels that this is a report we need to look at further, we need to, let me know, I can let them know, and we can maybe bring it forward to HLAC to look at the project. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Dick, would you mind putting your microphone on and speaking in?
Okay. I found it very difficult, but once I got it set up, it's really easy now. I just go in, the password saved, immediately lets me get in there, and then I can go in and, oh, there's something new, and I can click on it, and then it's just like our report, our box file for our meetings. It will have, a certain name, you click on it, then it will have all the different documents under that file.
I was going to ask if you would like me to mail out the historic reports once they get sent in to each of the commissioners, hard copy one.
That might be nice because there's more than the historic report, but I think the most thing we're interested in is looking at the historic report. And as we all know, they're very big documents. And for us to print them at home, it's a lot of paper and it's a lot of time. But if we can just come out of our budget and you can print those out and then mail them to us and say, this is what's in the box file, that would be very helpful. Does that sound good? It looks like I see some nodding yes from people. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Howard. I don't think your microphone's on. There we go. You're good.
Microphone. Make sure it's on.
Oh, once you see the red, you're good to go.
And it's on there. Now it's on.
It's red.
Okay.
Okay. In previous discussions, we thought, having hard copy mailed to us was, expensive, it consumed resources and all that. So we preferred, or we erred on the side of going to digital. And then people had problems, accessing the files on digital. It's very time consuming to go through each page and so forth and not be able to see the whole page and so on and so forth. So now that we're going back to mailing documents again, or receiving them in, hard copy, is that where we are now at the moment? Do we not want to remain?
Well, I think it's up to the commissioners. If you do not want it, let Jonathan know and he will not mail it to you. But some people, I'm just talking about me personally, I like to get the highlighter out and I like to put highlights on things.
Yeah.
And that's old school for me and I enjoy it. I can read it online, but and then have to write down what I'm seeing, but it's so nice to be able to flip back and forth on pages. That's me personally. But I know a lot of people, it's all electronic now and that's fine. And it does save money. It helps the environment. So, again, just let Jonathan know your preference and
Okay.
We can do that. But just remember, if you don't get the documents sent to you for the meetings, you have to physically go in there and make sure you read everything before the meeting.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That helps.
So like I say, well, Jonathan, I think we kind of have agreement. Go ahead. There's two reports, I believe, that are in there right now. Yeah, so if you could just print those out, send them out. I have not contacted either planner yet. So I personally think I saw one that I think might be of interest to the commissioners. So look at them and, we can go from there. Okay, so
Mr.
let's,
Chair?
yes.
Quick question. Is it still your understanding that planning and development wants us to look at these reports and then decide whether or not we want to perhaps landmark these buildings? Or do they want our opinion on about the project itself?
The understanding now is still about the landmarking status or place of merit.
So that's our only issue that
But
we're
if there
we're
is
to pay
things in
attention
the
to.
project that you feel is going to be detrimental to making a landmark status, then I think we need to have a discussion on that. And, it's a matter of, I think it's a project to project basis. One of these, I saw something that really jumped out at me, that maybe it's something we can just discuss with the planner, and decide what to do if they want to bring it to us that way, or because these projects that are going on the box, the property owners have already been asked that question. Do you want to become a historic landmark? If they say no, it will not come to us. It goes on to the next stage, either MBAR or wherever it goes next. If they say yes, then it will come to us. And like we've had this discussion many times that we feel like we're missing projects because of the way the projects are bypassing us. So, but they're setting this up a way for to look at that. So if we see something that is really, we feel is something that's really detrimental, even though the historic report will say that it meets standards, we can say, well, wait, we think there's a problem there. I mean, there is a big CEQA issue here. If things get missed and goes all the way, the county could be in some big trouble. So we need to make sure that we, if we feel it's important, we'll bring it up. We did it with, as commented earlier, what's coming up next month, East Valley Road. Okay, so let's
Right.
move on, but
Although East Valley Road, we weren't commenting on the project.
no, we were just on historic landmarks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. The next thing I had a meeting with Nicole Hernandez. Now, Nicole Hernandez, this was on Monday, April 29th. She is and listen to her title, Project Planner, Architectural Historian for the City of Santa Barbara. And as we know at our last meeting, we discussed about incentives for people to want to have their properties become historic landmarks. So I figured the best person to talk to is the City of Santa Barbara to see how they do. I'm not going to go into detail now because I think that will be an agenda item that I'll bring forward, in the next few months. But we had a really good conversation. Everything goes through her that has anything historic. They do have the Mills Act, and the Mills Act is very successful. She mentioned there's 75 projects currently in the city of Santa Barbara that are using the Mills Act that are going through construction phases at this moment. So it shows that she is the point person, and then she's also the representative for their City of Santa Barbara Historic Landmarks Commission. She's the one that sits in as a planner and historian. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that it was a very good meeting, and she's happy to help us in the future with any more detailed information. Okay, on April 19th, I received Jonathan received an email forwarded to me from Pamela Esquius Cox. She's from Massachusetts. She's the granddaughter of James Osborne Craig and Mary McLaughlin Craig. They were architects. Everyone just received hard copies on their dais. What she did is a whole list of all the properties that were done by her grandparents. And she listed it, and what her concern is a lot of these might slip through the cracks through planning and development. Some of these are in the city of Santa Barbara, some of them are in the county, but it's an amazing list of all the properties with the addresses. So I talked to David Villalobos. senior planner on how we can somehow integrate this list to planning development so that if it comes up, there's something construction-wise happening, that it will be flagged that this might be something we need to look at, say. So, I mean, it's a wonderful list. I wanted to make sure that everybody here received it, have it. And so I just wanted you to be aware of it. Okay, and that, yes. Go ahead. No, there's some city ones here. So you almost have to look at the address and then Google it and see if it's in the city limits, because some of these are city limits. But it looks like the majority are in the county, but there are a lot of city ones. I mean, the Craig's just off the top was El Paseo, correct? Yeah, so I mean, just to give you an idea, there were designs of the El Paseo, the original El Paseo in downtown Santa Barbara. So it's just a very nice list. And you know, I should probably make sure that you get the original letter email too, that went with it. That kind of explains her background and where this came from. Okay, so that is my chair and project discussions. Discuss funding potential historic projects, which we're going to do that later in a meeting. Supplemental letters, information received, or so if there's any project discussions. Really don't have anything under project discussions except for my shared. If not, let's move on. We'll move on to the budget. Item number 6, the County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will discuss the budget. Okay, everyone received the budget in your packet. If you notice the date, the budget is through the end of April, so it's quite current. I think the important things that you notice is it has the percent time elapsed at the end of the fiscal year, 83% has elapsed, and our total expenditures are at 67%. So this is the first time in many years that we've actually, are, at this moment, are a little bit below our actual expense. As usual, planning and staff budget goes over, but we have a lot of leeway in some of the other areas on our budget. This is really not a real discussion item, but I just want everyone to know that for the first time in a few years, we're looking pretty good in that area. I guess we could ask for any questions from any commissioners on this. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so now we'll move on to district reports. Individual commissioners may present brief reports that would be of interest to the public and/or commission as a whole. No official action shall be taken in an individual matter. So this is our time to talk about anything in your district. I know we have one item with some nice pictures in your packet, but would you, Commissioner Knight, would you like to go ahead and start since we
Sure.
have the pictures in front of us?
I did finally, after many attempts, track down the owner of property that Nancy Kelsey is buried on. I don't recall her last name. Her first name is Bonnie. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Actually, Commissioner Duncan brought me a map that shows exactly where it is. It's about 10 miles east or west, rather, of New Cuyama on Highway 166. Technically, District 1. And Bonnie, for some years, ran a B&B out there. And she lives there, probably 200 yards from the grave. And she was, when I finally contacted her, she was great. She was welcoming and walking me around there for about an hour. You can see there's some signage from other organizations. I know as well there's a memorial in town. That's how I first heard about Nancy Kelsey. I was eating at the restaurant there years ago, and a monument and a plaque from another group. Unfortunately, she's not interested in being a landmark. I don't know if we can wait her. It seems like it ought to be a landmark. She's done a lot of research to Nancy Kelsey, lived an amazing life, and had her finger in a lot of aspects of county history, but state history, national history, I would say. So if you're ever out that way, I would recommend emailing Bonnie, and she's pretty open to visitors. She gives talks to the elementary schools. She's open to visitation.
Thank you.
Mis-
Duncan.
Yeah, I have some questions for Commissioner Knight. Okay, amongst the pictures you showed us was one that sort of showed, I think, the grave site sort of out in a fenced area. Oh, well, let's see, it's on, here we go. The middle top picture there, does that show the grave site then?
Yeah,
Okay,
she's got a table out there with where she gives her talks. Little area for her to give a presentation. The wooden headstones there
Yeah.
that's her pet cemetery.
oh,
Those are her
okay.
pets there, and they're alongside Nancy's grave. And the signs that you see are kind of
So I'm just wondering if we were to consider this as a landmark, what would we delineate? Do you have any ideas on that?
maybe pretty small. Maybe just the plot itself. There's an infant buried on the side of her. They think that those-
Thanks. And then, Mr. Chair, just some additional language too. So I've looked through my old Los Padres Forest historical overview, and when we look to page 28 and page 29, it talks about her historical importance. Apart from being the first woman with child on an organized um, over the continent immigrant group seeking to come to California. She's also known as the Betsy Ross of California because she actually stitched together the original Bear flag. Okay, so that's what some of this signage is about too. Yeah. And then if Commissioner Knight's done on this subject, or other commissioners are done on that, I just wanted to note that Commissioner Steinwax has been sending me pictures of historic structures, particularly in San Ynez and Los Olivos, pointing out things that we might consider for landmarking. And there's some real obvious candidates. One of them is the Santa Rosa Schoolhouse, which is on the Dunn School campus. It has been moved, but it's in wonderful condition. There's also a really remarkable church on the east side of Santa Ynez Township, which appears to have been lost in a time warp, where its integrity is just amazing, considering what it represents and what normally would have happened to a structure of that age. So those are interesting also because they're public buildings, and so they're obviously ones that the public has interacted with apart from having seen them. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Knight.
Mr. Chair, I believe the Santa Rosa School is already a landmark, unless there's more than one. Landmark 41, I think. I only know this because the owner called me recently, and I've never seen it, but apparently he lives in it. And he's trying to get a grading permit from the county, and they advised him to get in touch with HLAC. Bless their hearts.
This is the one on Mail Road. Okay.
Yeah, But so anyway, he's in the process of hiring a historian to write up a letter as to whether there are any impacts to the site. But honestly, I was not familiar with that. It's one of many that I'm not familiar with. Yep.
I just want to make a comment on the Kelsey grave. I mean, it's pretty amazing that we have Oregon Trails Association, we're able to put a plaque there, and we have, what is it, the Boy Scout or the girl, group, yeah, it must be Boy Scouts. Yeah, Boy Scouts have a plaque there, and yet it's not a county historic landmark. I mean, I think maybe if we could try to work with the property owner, I think this is so obvious that it should be. That's my personal opinion. And it's not like we're going to allow visitors on the property. It's just a matter of designating. And that's the way I would say to talk to the property owner. Try to say, well, you have these other plaques. What would be wrong with just designation? You wouldn't allow, it wouldn't change anything to how you're using your property at the moment. But it's one of these things that, we always try to get as much as possible the property owner to be in favor of it. We don't have to, but it's so much better. So,
Well, I do. I've met her, and I can't remember her name. My husband's family had a ranch in Cuyama next to the Spanish ranch, and it was sold in 2005. But he knew this Bonnie, and I've gone out there. It's up Elisa's Canyon, isn't it? I think Cottonwood Canyon. Cottonwood. Yeah, it was just over Canyon. Ours. I know he knows her. He's character. He used to feud with her. And then he wound up living in ranch sold. So there is a connection. And I'll see if Kevin is, husband Kevin Snow, he's willing. Because he does, I'm pretty sure.
I'll forward the email that she sent me with her reasoning.
Okay, that
for
would
not
be great.
wanting it.
Yeah, that would
I'm completely in favor of it. Seems like it has to be a landmark. But if she was gracious to me, I don't want to. Well, if everybody knows, I think it'd be.
I think we should just try to continue the conversation, and hopefully we can get the main thing I think is, like I stated earlier, is it's not going to change anything. It's how she uses the property at the moment. And it sounds like she's inviting school kids to come out. So she can still do that at her own discretion, and just another plaque.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, so that
Mr.
anything
Chair,
else on district? Oh, yes.
I
Commissioner Wittot.
certainly support looking into this designation of the Nancy Kelsey gravesite. When I was in the 3rd grade in Ojai Valley School, we sang a song. Did you ever hear tell of sweet Betsy from Pike, who crossed the white prairies with her lover Ike, with 2 yoke of cattle, a tall Shanghai rooster, and an old yaller dog? I am wondering if this Betsy, a Ross of the West, who came over on the Oregon Trail, was the same sweet Betsy from Pike. I don't know, but it is interesting to me that this marker, which is in this county, was dedicated or made possible by the Oregon Trails Association. What is that connection? So I'm in support of this.
If you want to get into the nitty-gritty details, the original party, which left from Independence, Missouri in 1842, was subsequently divided at Fort Hall. And most of them went on to Oregon. But another group that was known as the Bidwell Bartleson Party, kept on to California. And of course, John Bidwell became very well known. Bartleson was a colonel, and he brought with him a number of men and trail savviness, and supposedly he wouldn't go forward and bring his men unless he was head of the party. So I suspect that's one reason why Oregon is interested in it, because they were part of that connection, trail connection early on.
Original party, yeah. Thank you. That's very interesting to me.
And the interesting thing was at that point in time, when they split at that date, it was a lot clearer where you were going to Oregon compared to California. California was a much bigger unknown in how to get there.
I remember.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Well, looking into it about Cuyama. My husband's major focus has always been on like Fremont, expeditions, and there was an old adobe, and we've not been able to find it out in Cuyama. It may have turned into mud by now. The Alexis Godet, and he was on 3 of Fremont's expeditions, including the one where starved he and Godet and Carson had to go in Santa Fe. I mean, it's like an adventure story, but this Godet wound up then over a few out of Santa Barbara, and lived out there. He wound up dying in Bakersfield, but there's an adobe out there somewhere in Cuyama that my husband's really trying to find. You know, there's the Reyes adobe is over on one end when you come in from Ojai, but it's a really fascinating area because it has a whole bunch of history. Well, the land grant, De La Guerra, Rania, 1, 2, and then you had a lot of the Hancock lawyers coming in when they were trying to, when they had all the patents coming in after the Civil War, and then there's a lot of lawsuits and the ranches and the land were being homesteaded. I mean, and then a lot of the lawyers got the land. I'm sure you all know that. But it's a really neat area. It's just, I'd love to find that adobe at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
we should-
Question. Is all of Cuyama in Santa Barbara County, or is Cuyama spread over into other counties?
That whole valley is in Santa Barbara County.
Okay.
You know, I don't know, maybe Cuyama is further than what I'm thinking, but it's,
Yeah.
what I know
Cuyama
is
Valley.
Santa Barbara County.
And okay.
And it's actually, like I say, it's like Sheila said, it's his first district.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it is in first
I
district.
need to know that.
Okay, well, let's move on. We do have an agenda here. Okay, so no more district reports. Okay, well, let's move on to the standard agenda. Okay, we have item number 8. This is the discussion of whether to initiate an application to investigate and potentially designate Cold Springs Canyon Bridge. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review, discuss, and provide comments on whether to initiate an application to investigate and potentially designate the existing Cold Springs Canyon Bridge, number 51-0037, as a County of Santa Barbara historic landmark. The bridge is located at County Route Post Mile SB 154 PM 22 95-23.19. This is in, I believe, the 3rd supervisor district. I kept looking on the map. It might be straddling 2, but I think it's in the 3rd district. So let me just normally, you know, we have a planner that will talk about the project. So I'll be like the planner, just give you a quick little background of this. The bridge was completed in 1963. It was open to traffic in 1964. There was 2 reports that are on our box file. One is 11-1994. This is the primary records report that you should have. That's the one that has most of the information we need for this discussion. And then there was a supplemental report that was done when the bridge railing was put in, which we discussed as a commission a few years later. The report will say that the bridge meets criterion C and it meets criterion G for significance as a historic landmark. And just to be aware that the American Society of Civil Engineers, the Santa Barbara Ventura section designated the structure as a historic civil engineering landmark number 44 in 1976. Since this is owned by the state, I contacted Lindsay Kozub, that's our principal architectural historian from District 5. And I asked her for Caltrans to look into if they would have any objections to this becoming a historic landmark. She checked with the Caltrans Cultural Studies Office, and they agreed that the county designation, quote, would not be a problem. And quote unquote, no objections to a designation. And I emailed her one day, and 2 days later, I got the answer. So she was very quick on getting this answer. So we have the Caltrans approval for making this a county landmark. So that is the background, and I guess we could always start with questions. So we can first start with questions. Or first, any ex parte for any members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I drove over it this morning. And do it all the time.
Okay.
And most recently, I went and looked obviously at the structure underneath because we were discussing how potentially communications conduits could be laid across the bridge and how they could be fastened either under the deck or on the rail above. As far as questions, I don't
Let's
have.
pursue with any ex partes, just there any,
Okay.
just real quick. 'Cause I should mention that the pictures in front of you were taken by me, and that was a couple of weeks ago. And that was one of those foggy days in Santa Barbara, and you go over the crest, and it was nice and sunny on the other side, so the pictures came out nice. So that was my ex parte. Any others? And then we'll go back to Commissioner Duncan with questions. I guess the rest of us have driven over it many times. Okay, Commissioner Duncan, do you have questions?
The one thing I'd sort of wonder about in going forward with this is obviously the bridge has approaches and it has foundation below it. And there's even a roadway below it. So one thing we might think about going forward is what might be the area that's involved.
Mr. Chair?
Just a comment. From here on, I would advise maybe to address it correctly. Any local that really cares, because there is just one spring. It's Cold Spring. It's not springs. It's not plural. So the documents that are on the screen is correct. The plaque is correct, but in our agenda, it is not correct.
Mr. Chair? I have a question about the guardrail that was put up recently that to prevent people jumping off the bridge. This was very controversial at the time that it came up, and it did alter the experience of the bridge significantly. There was a lot of controversy on this commission from the public and from the the families that have whose members have actually they've lost family members because of the bridge. And I would wonder whether this in designating the bridge, that how we would treat the element of the chain link guardrail that was added. It is not a part of the original construction, and also detracts from the original experience of the bridge. I've been around long enough to have driven over that many times with my top down, and the experience of the valley and the surrounding scenery and so forth from an open car was extraordinary. Plus, it's an engineering feat.
In the secondary report about the railing, it does mention that if, I don't know what you want to call it, they call it a suicide railing or whatever you want to call it, is removable. They did not change the original railing on the bridge. So if it ever wanted to be removed, it could be, and it would still be at its current state. And that is one of the reasons why they said it not affect.
I believe that removability was a program that was added to the Caltrans design as a result of all the discussion.
But that is in that report.
Yeah.
Read it. It does say-
Okay. Thank you.
And more than that, it's actually a very detailed analysis of the effects and the various ways it changes the experience of driving over the bridge and the bridge itself and the perception of the bridge, et cetera. It's actually a very good analysis of what it says that there's an adverse effect, but it obviously says that it's not so great as to inhibit the bridge's ability to communicate the other things it communicates. And I would say, obviously, as part of any designation, you'd want to incorporate that analysis.
My question is, we're designated. So
Yes, that would be, that's what we're talking about. Should we designate it? And then if we decide, we'll bring it back with a nomination.
and
Huh.
writing a report or
Yes, and that will always be the
Mr.
going to write the report.
One little tiny question further. What level of designation are we talking about? Is this a county or
It's
state?
historic landmark, not a place of merit.
A landmark, but is this a county historic landmark?
County
State
historic.
landmark? Yes,
It's-
no?
Right now, it's not designated anything except for that engineering that's in the report. And in fact, the pictures I took, that plaque is from the civil engineering. It's a civil engineering landmark.
So is this bridge eligible for designation as a for nomination to the National Register, listing on the National Register?
Yes, it's, if you look at the report,
Okay,
it
then.
says the criterias that it's eligible for.
I
And
don't
it's
have
on
a copy of that
page,
report, so, okay.
I have it highlighted here.
Mhm.
That's it.
Could you scroll up to the top of that screen?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna get to
What-
the page, maybe we can.
What we have here, Howard, is what's called a primary record. It's a form. And it's not really a report,
Oh.
but it can take the place of a report.
Page 19, Jonathan.
And this particular one on the screen was filled out by professional historians just to address the guide rails. So there's a separate form for the bridge itself.
So
So essentially, all of the analysis and assessment and determination of significance has already been done for us. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It just has to be put into an application.
So I see at the top of the form,
Yeah, Jonathan put in page 19 that the second paragraph, it states the Cold Springs Canyon Bridge is significant under criterion C for its engineering and architectural design and as an important work of the Division of Highways Bridge Department and American Bridge Division of U.S. Steel. The structure lies in both its engineering and valued. Is that the one? So it says it's significant in criterion C, and then you go down in two other paragraphs, it has a description of why it is significant under criterion G. And that's the Cold Springs Bridge possesses exceptional importance that meets the standards of criterion consideration G. So these are the two engineering criterions for historic landmarks for bridges, and these are for the National Historic.
I see that on the top line there, it is NHRP code number 2S2, which means it's already been considered by NHRP, National Historic Places, what do you call it, registration. I'm sorry, listing on the National Historic Preservation Register.
It's considered eligible. I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah, they just,
certain if it's actually on the register, but it's eligible.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I understand that.
So our job today is to discuss it and say whether.
Discuss if we want to bring this back with a nomination.
That's
Yeah.
pretty obvious. I would think we all have.
Okay, well, okay, we're still on questions, and then we can do comments after questions. Okay, so let's move on, since, let's go on to comments. So let's move on. Who wants to start making comments? Should we bring this back as a nomination or not as a nomination?
Mr. Chair.
That might be a good idea too. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
Yes, we have one hand up. Mark Shatillo.
Mark Shatillo, go ahead, Mr. Shatillo.
Good morning, members of the commission. I'm Mark Shatillo, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of Friends of the Cold Springs Bridge. We have been, Friends of the Cold Springs Bridge has been involved in the Cold Spring Bridge for a number of years, in large part in the interest of protecting its historical and architectural integrity. Some years ago, at the time of the proposed installation of the safety fencing, we questioned whether CEQA was fully followed, and did have an exchange in litigation with Caltrans, and had the opportunity to expand public involvement in this process. We specifically did favor the consideration of an alternative that wouldn't have the same impact to the above deck experience of using nets. At that point, the nets were not proven or available. Since then, some other historical structures, such as the Golden Gate Bridge, has undergone a retrofit using the nets that addressed the public safety concern and the potential for the site to be the site of additional attempted suicides. But with as noted, the fences that were installed, the safety fencing is removable. And that's an important factor, I think, in maintaining the option to have the nets alternative be considered at some point in the future if funding's available and there's the will. But even as it stands today, Friends believe strongly that it is still eligible for designation, and we would strongly encourage the Historical Landmarks Advisory Committee to proceed with the designation of Cold Spring Canyon Bridge as a historical landmark. We did have quite a bit of interaction with the State Historic Preservation officer and his office at the time of the initial safety netting. And we know that this is an important resource to that office as well. So this obviously is a step that only the county can take. But with that step, I think that might also facilitate future state designation and potentially more. So we wholeheartedly support this proposed action and appreciate Caltrans's support for designation, and we hope that your commission will move forward with alacrity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shatillo. Any other public comments?
We have no other public comment.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so we've had questions, we've had public comments, so let's move on to commissioner comments for moving this forward as a potential historic landmark. Yes, Commissioner Wittek.
I have to leave the room shortly, but I wanted to say wholeheartedly support this nomination and designation, and at the highest level possible, as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you. Who would like to go next? Mr. Duncan?
Mr. Chair, I would have to concur with Commissioner Witash. This is one of those cases where it's a no-brainer. It's a remarkable feature that we were fortunate to have constructed in our county because it was really needed. And in fact, I wrote a little article at the time of the barrier was being considered, just to point out to the community how much it changed the relationship of the San Ynez Valley to the rest of the county. When you take 15 minutes out of a drive and 88 turns, that really changes the relationship from one part to another. It was occurring right at the time when UCSB was really expanding, and the relationship between people who were either teaching or studying at the university and the valley changed. There was incredible expansion of the wine industry and the tourist industry as a result of this. And commuting basically became possible between the valley and the south coast. So it's really changed um, uh, the relationship of different parts of the not only our county, of the state. If you consider people driving north and south, how many of them choose this route now because the bridge made it possible? Um, and obviously, it has also been a remarkable aesthetic experience to drive across that bridge. And that's one thing that is um, pointed out in Caltrans's analysis, if we hadn't figured that out ourselves, that filmmakers have also, so that we see this as an archetypal way to depict travel and seeing new places and uh, uh, some of the remarkable beauty of our county. So I'm very supportive in having it designated as a Santa Barbara County landmark.
Oh, yeah, just, yeah, in favor of it, and especially, Mark Chatillo alluded to, a new type of, suicide mitigation barrier. Yeah, to take down the existing one, if there's one just as effective or better, that would be below the, view shed, to give back that historic view, unobstructed from what it is right now. That would be, I would recommend that as well. As we're talking, thinking about to designate this.
Mr. Chair. I also heartily endorse this project before us. We should, HLAC should definitely landmark this bridge. I have slight, I'm not sure about including the road below. That might unnecessarily complicate the situation, but it's entirely logical to separately landmark the Stagecoach Road. I mean, it's original in its original place for several miles. That should be, we should think about that one at some point, because roads are dedicated as landmarks.
There's a historic marker on the road as well that calls out the bridge, the place to, yeah.
Spot.
Which one? Botanic Garden, yeah, yeah.
Davidson House. This is a private.
Ever since we landmarked her property, which, if you remember, she wrote the original nomination for, and it came to us with that. She's wanted to have a plaque, and I told her that we would be working on that. And so
Mr. Chair?
May I inquire how the installation?
Usually,
Mr. Chair? Question. So all 6 plaques are 10 by 7. So, the number? Number. Okay. Yeah. My question was that to ask that, and the 10 by 7 seems appropriate for Santa Barbara County Historical Landmark number, blah, 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 and the number. If you say more than that, you might want to consider a larger plaque. And also with respect to a property like Rocky Nook Park, where people drive by and where you might have a bigger boulder or bigger stone merits a bigger plaque, size proportion to the importance of the place. I can see that on buildings where you have an entrance or by the entrance or whatever, that a smaller plaque with fine print makes a lot of sense. But I just wanted to mention that are we, before we pull the trigger and order 6 plaques, do we want to make sure that we are hitting it, with one shot and getting it right on the one shot for all 6 places. Unless we want to have one that is larger and 2 or 3 of their larger, whatever. That is half my question. I have another question. I do understand the economies of scale there.
Mr. Chair, when we did the overall survey of all the signage of the landmarks, what we found was we basically had 3 different types of signage. We had a whole group of landmarks where they were using these old wooden signs, which are really beautiful signs, but they are difficult to maintain, and they sort of tend to deteriorate over time. Then there were the ones that had this sort of bronze plaque that we're talking about, and they were all basically 8 by 10 with this same thing. And these were obviously all commissioned by the HLAC, as were these standard wooden signs. Then there was a third group, and those were cases where the owners of the landmark had done something more elaborate or different or custom. And some of those were bigger and had different format and had other sort of language. But the precedent has been clearly set for the HLAC and the county to use these standard plaques when we're providing them and working to get them put up. I mean, I would say if we want to have something more elaborate, I'd say that's probably going to be the property owner's responsibility. Because they're going to have to need to make the space for it and provide more elaborate mounting too.
Doing all reverse mounts. Some of the older plaques, you can see the little stars that they were front mounts, but we figured the reverse mounts are cleaner, and it's a newer way of putting a plaque on. Before, they used to have the little stars where the screws are or whatever to put them on.
Reverse mounts are non-removable. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a pending question. So I remember talking about the entrance building to Kachuma Lake Park and the potential there. I don't know where that conversation ended and how it ended. Does anyone, do you have an?
It's still working. Commissioner Nye has been working on that.
It's still in process.
So from our perspective, I understand what in process means. From our perspective, we consider it eligible because of its condition and its age and so on and so forth. Is the problem of designation of that building because the control of the property is the County of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department? Are they the ones that they would be the owners and they would have to agree to this? Or do we run counter to the sentiments of Public Works and Parks once more and want to designate this building in opposition to their?
Well, I think as Commissioner Nye said, this is something that works in progress.
Still in progress.
Because there's different entities, because you have a state involved in
There's stakeholders.
state is part of state.
Well,
No,
the state. Yeah.
it's the Federal Bureau of Reclamation
Oh, federal.
and who built the dam, and the county parks, which manages the park that the facility is in. It hasn't gotten to the point where we know if someone is objecting to it or not. One, I've had static from the Parks Department about looking at their file, but I think I will prevail on that issue because it's a public record.
Public Information Act.
So, but aside from that, it's just, we haven't really gotten far enough to where we can say that they're for it or against it.
Okay. Just wanted to know where it was at the moment. I'd be interested in helping with that project, getting it designated, by the way.
Okay, so let's go back to, we're talking about the plaques. Any other comments on the plaques? Commissioner Malcolm?
Yeah, implementing this is long overdue. So thank you, Keith, and the subcommittee. This is just fantastic.
You know, I have to say, that little conversation with Nicole Hernandez, City of Santa Barbara, I wouldn't have even known this company existed. So it just tells you when we partner with different people, how we get new information and great savings here. And like I say, it's an amazing, if you go on their website, they have pictures of all the people involved and they all have the same last name. It's all family members that are running this foundry. So I guess this is a vote, so it's someone to move
Oh,
now.
I'm sorry, I have more to say.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I do want to suggest that for private properties that we may offer it to, that they do conditionally put it in a public space, like not where public can't access reading it. That would make no sense. So if it's like somebody's house, maybe like on the near the sidewalk or wherever people would view it. I know there's, say, for example, a little windmill on somebody's property that can't be accessed. Well, on the street, put the plaque right where you can see the windmill or something, for example, or other buildings like that. And you're talking about the design of the plaques. I guess it's throughout the years, there have been 3 different variations. Maybe start having a template for from moving on forward. Some kind of consistent or continuity of design that can identify, okay, this is now a County of Santa Barbara Historic Landmark plaque. So if you go anywhere, you can identify, hey, that's a county landmark. And well, maybe if making a more elaborate plaque to be flexible with it, but as long as there's a design, color scheme, placement of say the county seal or something on the plaque, just make some rules consistent where we know that, hey, we can identify that as a county plaque from 10 feet away or something like that.
Yeah, I think when discussion, I think this, I mean, it's very good because I think by working with a single company, they will have a template that they will kind of use for us. This, you know, they'll know what kind of border,
Right.
they'll know what kind of font. And like I said, what we've talked about is just something very simple. The name, what it is, and then Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark number, and then the number. So it'll be and then if it's a house or something that we know a date, we could also put the date under that. So would be very simple. I mean, the one on Cold Springs Bridge is nice, but it's like, whoa, that's a lot of wording, you know, in front of you. This would be something that you're, from a distance, you'll see I can't want to say County of Santa Barbara, but they're like Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark and the number and the name. And that's kind of basically very simple. And the idea is once we do this first batch, that will be the template they'll have at that foundry that they'll use for us.
Okay.
Just to step back, when I talked with the City of Santa Barbara, I found some interesting things. We're talking about incentives and we're talking about plaques. She said, well, what they do in the city, because they have so many, they do mostly historic merits for the houses in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Not very many landmarks. But what they do is the city presents the homeowner with a really nice document, kind of like they do for when the supervisors do a, you know, Red Ribbon Day or something, and they give a nice plaque and this supervisors on this day, whereas, we dedicate, well, they give that to the homeowner that they can frame.
Mhm.
And then they have the contract with this company that they will have a standard plaque that the homeowner pays for, and it's only $99. It's not bronze, it's something else that's durable, that they order directly from this company for $99 through the city, for the city of Santa Barbara, and it's made. So the city of Santa Barbara makes the owners of the properties that are landmarks pay for their own plaque. But
Mm.
They do get a nice certificate. They don't want.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
since we don't have as many, and these are major public resources, that's why we are going the
Right.
route we've done in the past.
Okay.
And we
I-
can always change it down the road. If all of a sudden we're doing lots and lots of landmarks, we might not have the money to do it, then
Yeah.
we might have to have the owners pay for the plaque.
Okay. Well, I did want to have something flexible, like I always like to read plaques with the history, a little blurb of history on it. If we determine we can't afford something like that and the owner would like that, we'll have them make up the difference or something and expand the plaque a bit more. I think that would be a good compromise for that. But yeah.
The city, as you notice around town, they have QR codes. They can
Oh.
scan and it will give the information all about.
Yeah, but this is today and this
is
time,
fine,
but
'cause you never know what's going to happen
Right.
30, 40 years down the road. We want something that,
Yeah, QR codes might not be in existence then and something else, but yeah, I like a description. But anyway.
okay. Yes, go ahead.
Well, it sounds like I'm perseverating on installation, but there are a lot of people nowadays that seem to like to feel bronze and melt it down. And so what it's mounted against, how it's mounted, I think is an important consideration to know that it's going to stay there.
I think that's why we decided that the reverse mount is so much better now. 'Cause it does help
But if it's
from them to crowbar. I mean, if they really want something, they'll probably get it, no matter what.
I mean, for example, if it's mounted on wood, it's easily pried off.
Mhm.
Whereas if it's mounted on concrete,
I mean, certain areas, are going to have more vulnerability. I think, a park is going to be more apt to be vandalized versus, say, an entrance to the Coral Casino or to Maddie's Tavern, where there's security and there's all kinds of employees around all the time. But in a park that supposedly is closed at a certain time, there's still people that go in there that they could, cause some problems. I mean, it's just something that is a possibility that can happen. And so far, we haven't seen any of our plaques disappear. I mean, maybe there is some gone, but when we did our survey, where there was supposed to be a plaque, it was still there. So does anyone want to do a motion, or do we have more comments?
I have a couple questions or comments.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, make your comment.
I have a brief comment. I wonder if the plaque could have a reference to our website. Like our website's getting better, right? More information about the. Just a thought.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering though, like 50 years from now, if the website will still be there, I mean, I guess, okay, see, Commissioner Snow just said something, and I keep going back and forth. Should we say County of Santa Barbara Historic Landmark, or should we just do Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark? I keep saying county, and then I look at the older plaques, they all say Santa Barbara County, and the older ones say historical, which needs to be historic.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
first, I think we ought to ask if there's any public comment on this before we start making our comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan.
And then I'd suggest the logical thing, since we're into history here, is to basically use the same format which has been used. And that's a pretty simple, you are correct in that some of them have historical, and that's been a thing we've been struggling with the same way some people will call us a committee. But I would say keeping to the basic plaque, no frills, but clarity it's been proven. And obviously, what we have on our website could be much greater in depth. And we've been attempting to add more information there and get those properties that are more recent have the complete information.
Okay, so Jonathan, can you see if we have any public comment on this agenda item?
We have nobody present wish to speak on this item, and we have nobody online, and we have received no letters. No public comment.
Okay, we have no public comment. So if there are any further comments, I'm
I
glad
just
to
was
continue
wondering,
this discussion, yes.
I would think if we are going to make a motion, I don't know if the committee can make it. I would think it might be somebody else. Make the motion, or do you want to make it? I mean, are we to the point where we're making a motion?
I think we are at the point of making a motion and yes, some more comments. Okay,
Didn't know we were that.
okay,
point.
we're in comments.
Well, it's, we're moving ahead without seeing what the product will look like. I have no idea what this.
Didn't we have on the box the pictures of the plaques in our box? I thought we had the original pictures. I think that Commissioner Duncan had sent.
I provided you with a couple of prototypes, Mr. Chair.
I thought they were put in the box, so maybe they weren't.
That's
Screen?
Yeah.
just,
No, that's someone else's. Well, that's what we're going to see. I don't know if Jonathan put it in the box. I thought he did, but maybe not. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Just for maybe a point of order, or maybe to just, we're basically wanting to allocate money to buy these, right?
Right.
Maybe vote on that and then discuss design and everything later. When you can put the order in for some plaques and they know that they're gonna get an order, but then we'll do the designing and discuss that later at a different meeting rather than, because I think there's some issues that, yeah, you wanted to figure out, is it County of Santa Barbara County? Well, County of Santa Barbara is on our seal right now. As far as consistency from previous years, how about historical or historic? Stuff like that. And we're Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission right now. So that's probably how it should read. Or I think there's more issues than that need to be discussed when we're actually designing these plaques. So I think maybe just to
That's a
vote,
possibility.
vote on the
Funding.
funding, yes, right now, and then later discuss.
Because I know they have to set up an account with the county. And I talked to David and he was saying things that they need to do at their end. So that might take some time too. I just want to make sure that we get the money out before the end of June.
And we have an estimate here. We could make it with an overage if we need it. We allocate this much because we are getting to the end of the year, so we do need it.
Yeah, and just when I originally talked, they said quotes that we have here will probably be through summer, and then of course everything goes up, so they're going to have new pricing. But it will these quotes will be good through July or so.
Well, that's what I meant. When we do the motion, maybe make an allowance for pay more, but allocate enough to get flat.
So I mean, we have, I put a number in here, but it didn't include the shipping, so we could round that up and just, do a $1,500 up to $1,500, something like that, just to. Yes, go ahead.
I concur that just voting on the funding is appropriate, and when the plaques are ordered, someone needs to generate a document that says the wording on each particular plaque and have in the agreement basically what's called a shop drawing submittal by the company that gives us a picture of each of the plaques. scale and represent what we're going to get.
Yeah, there's, as you probably know, they do a form that we fill in the wording that you want. And then they'll come back, like you say, show what it will look like before they actually go and press it out. Because right now, if you can see this invoice, it says either reverse or, has a color finish. I mean, there's lots of question marks on here that we can decide what to do with that.
Chair,
Yes.
I'm uh, on board with allocating these funds so we don't lose them and they go to something useful. But I'm unsure of what the appropriate size of these plaques should be. Weren't you telling me that they're somewhat smaller in the city?
1 inch, well, they mentioned in the city, they're like 9 by 5 or something like
Mhm.
that, really small. But they're designed to be on a house
Right.
versus a public
I see,
space.
I see.
They're
Well,
not bronze either. They're, I don't know. something.
again, this gets into questions that we probably aren't ready to resolve now. Size, uh, permission. I mean, what if we order these 6 and we end up not being able to install 1 or 2 of them? I don't know. Just seems like there's these questions. I'm not trying to block this, but there are a lot of questions. I prefer a discrete, uh, uh, not a discrete plaque of some sort. And I also would prefer that the property owners themselves pay for it, as opposed to this commission.
Mr. Chair,
These are, I'll support whatever the commission wants, but I just wanted to sort of get those 2 or 3 issues on the table.
Mr. Chair, I have to say that I am in support of Dr. Nye's position on this. I don't think we have camera-ready work to approve. The size is in question. I like to see in front of my bloody eyes what it is we're paying for. So there is no question when it's delivered. Yes, that's it. I don't think we're ready to move on this today. We need not more information. We just need to see something from the other end that says, yeah, we're going to get these plaques, 6 plaques, whatever. They're this size and this is what they look like. And this is the wording, 6 pieces of camera ready work. And we can look at those. We can know that they're going to be mounted, reverse mounted and so forth in this place and that place and 6 different places. And then we say, okay, we'll pay for this. But I do think we need something to look at in order to approve the money. Camera ready work. As Commissioner Saloga said, shop drawings.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now how many years ago. I think it's probably 6 years ago that we did our survey of the signage. And at that time, we looked at pictures of all these things. And the committee went and looked at our 50-some landmarks and evaluated what there was in the field and what probably needed to be replaced or marked. As I said before, we found there basically 3 types of signage that were existing. And there were problems with the wooden signs, although they had a wonderful amount of character. And then as far as those that were metal, there were a few that were different, obviously paid for by the property owner. And then there was a whole group that were paid for by the county themselves. And this was a very standard signage. And this was those that I provided you pictures of, Mr. Chair. And
Thought
Jonathan,
to show today, but
yeah,
I don't.
there.
If you wouldn't mind forwarding me those, I could make sure that they're available for the next hearing.
Okay.
There was two signs, one with a reverse mount, and then we have an older one with a
Right.
front mount.
And those signage was extremely simple. And I thought today, all we were talking about was basically doing the same signage. And that there would be no radical discussion as to what would be the content. It's pretty simple. Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark, number so-and-so, and then the name of that feature and potentially the date. And that's it. That's all there is on these. And that was what was figured to be adequate and appropriate when they were originally commissioned. And I would say, if we're going to be able to use these funds and try and achieve the signage that we already said identified as being needed, we need to do it before the end of the year. We've obviously prioritized ones that the public will see most, and that is consistent with our mission that's outlined in Chapter 18A. And part of that is to tell the public about these historic features. So I would be very much in support of approving the commission's approval of $1,500 to start with the 6 identified plaques that we have here, potentially customize them a little if we need to, or potentially add another plaque if one of these property owners doesn't want to, substitute a different name, but have that much fundage and get this much done.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Watash?
I can support this motion on 2 conditions. One is that I heard the words Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark as the language. That is good language. And also that it match the style, lettering, spacing, fonts, all that stuff that is on the original previously installed plaques. Those would be that if we move ahead on that, allocate the money for that, Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark number.
What's the wording on our
Okay, but not historical and not county of, and Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark. I would go along with this.
You didn't make a motion on that. So
That was my motion, Mr.
your
Chair.
motion? Okay, I thought you just said I would, okay.
If we get a second on that motion, then we can go to.
I will second it.
Okay, so we have a move, we have a second. Now we can go to discussion on the motion that's on the table.
Is the motion for a particular amount?
We're 1,500. So it gives a little leeway for shipping and changes that might happen.
Might I suggest if this amount becomes kind of a limiting factor, that we might add additional contingency while we're approving? In other words, if there are more words
Right.
or things.
Well, the wording will not be a problem because they have, I don't have it written, I have it in my packet at home. It's a lot of letters. I mean, we could almost do the wording that's on that big plaque you saw in front of us.
My point is that if we're trying to approve an amount before the end of the fiscal year,
Mhm.
that maybe we best cover our tiny little bit the amount.
Yes.
I'd be glad to amend my motion with a potential 10% additional to cover contingencies.
I'll second that.
And so the second agrees to the amended.
Any possibility of getting some artwork? As it like, can they send the artwork and we look at the artwork and then say, yes, go ahead, engrave and print and pour the metal and so
Well,
forth?
we could have time to bring it back for the June meeting.
Okay,
Uh,
just, yeah, I'd like to see something
at
before they
County Council.
pour the
Would we
metal.
have to make that an agenda item or could we do it during budget discussion? The artwork.
I'd recommend bringing
As an agenda item.
Okay, because we're going to have a very full June meeting.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, along this point, I forget what the design you were talking about looks like. I have to see it again. But anyway, I just wanted to caution on something too simplistic. We really want something like the county seal on there as well, as far as artwork goes. You want it to look official. You want to look at, you just don't want just a plain plaque with words on it saying that this site is. That just doesn't say enough. It needs to look official, is what I'm saying. Have the county seal or for example. So that might cost a little extra if the seal's involved instead of just letters on the plaque. So I want to have that discussed as well, if that makes sense.
Do the original plaques have seal?
No, it's just very simple, like we were saying. Just the
I-
name and then Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark.
Yeah.
Can I interject that as I look at the seal and consider the size of the plaque, and the detail that's involved in the seal, that I don't know that that's a,
Of course, it'll be something simplified, but it's something that looks official because any plaque would be ignored, that, dig some kind of plaque, let's ignore it. You want something that somebody would want to read. They say, oh, that looks cool. I want to read it. And then, okay, then I don't know. It just doesn't ring well with me that just to identify it, as this is what it is. It's too plain.
Mr. Chair, the signage committee looked at all these and looked at the handsome wooden signs and the metal signs that had been previously commissioned by the commission and all the custom signs. And I have to say that ours look good, right? They're simple, but they look like something that's important. That's one of the value of having something in bronze. And obviously placement is important too. But there wasn't a feeling at the time when the signage committee looked at this and brought it to the commission before that we had to have the seal on it. Now, obviously, if we want to do that, we're talking about the custom thing and we're talking about around a $300 sign and maybe more because it maybe needs to be bigger. So we're obviously going to have to do a lot fewer. One thing we can do potentially to try and address Randy's is go ahead and authorize this funding. And obviously, we could have fewer plaques if necessary to try and get a more elaborate plaque. I'm not personally in support of that, but we could get an idea of what they would charge us to do so. And then for Devical's advocacy purposes, we could say whether we want to do that, fewer, more elaborate, or whether we want to go the simple route, which I would support.
So it sounds like we're going to bring this back as an agenda item in June. If we approve for the funding now, I guess I will work with the company to do mock-ups, of each plaque that we can bring back, show to the whole commission, and then we can go from there. Because it will be very tight because funding ends at June 30th. If we approve it now, though, but it won't be paid for till into June after that June 10th meeting because they're not going to charge us. So we got to make sure this money is still available.
Mr. Chair.
So we have a motion that's been amended. We have a second. I don't see any further discussion. Should we do a roll call vote on this just to be sure since we're talking money here? So we'll start down below, Commissioner Witosh.
Aye.
Okay, do my left to right, Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Commissioner Knight,
Aye.
Commissioner Sulaga, Commissioner Nye,
Aye.
Commissioner Snow,
Aye.
Commissioner Malcolm,
Aye.
and Commissioner Copeland Gray, aye. Okay, that ends that agenda item. And that ends our meeting for today. Just a reminder, our next meeting is June 10th. And it's at 10 o'clock, and it will be held here in the Board of Supervisors hearing room. Just be prepared for a very, very long meeting. It looks like we're going to have a lot of agenda items.
We were sent information about the Moody House. Is
That
gonna
was,
be
no,
back-
we don't know. That's something that is going to be, that was just pulled, and it will come back in the future. We just don't know when. Yes. Well, I always have breaks. So we'll have a break. And bring snacks. You know, you can have
Mr. Chair,
on your counter here.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you close the meeting, I do have a comment about the, it's to compliment you and the work that was done by the committee that worked with Caltrans on the bridge up in
Let's leave us.
Los Olivos. And the reason I would like to, I think it would be appropriate if we were to write a letter from our commission to the Department of Transportation, Caltrans, expressing appreciation for their help in pulling off, I don't even use that word, a successful project up there. I think it dignifies what was there, although they could not literally preserve the original structure. They did a decent job. And that outreach to the Caltrans is part of our way of doing business with outreaching to the city of Santa Barbara. And I would add to that, to the city of Goleta, which is still in search of a historic structures department or historic preservation department. They don't have anybody over there that's doing that. So we would like to encourage them to get on board and influence them, outreaching as much as possible for the purpose of getting them also to start designating their historic resources.